أو مساء الخير, good evening, for those who are attending from a different time zone. Actually, I'm the only one who's attending from this time zone. Welcome to our first kickoff meeting or kickoff lecture related to the project that has been launched last week, which is actually not last week. It has been launched since publishing the records of the entire the big course. But this is the launch of the free sessions that will start and continue, inshallah, until I cannot set a time for completion. It's a time at large project, so we'll keep doing this until something stops us. Anyway, today's lecture is a complimentary lecture to a very controversial topic. Controversials mean, or controversial means مثير للجدل. Controversial topic, which is delay analysis. And actually, I picked some controversial points related to this topic. These points are related to differentiator or disengaging. Disengaging, you will hear this word a lot. Disengaging means فض اشتباك. When we get some terminologies that are getting together and getting a kind of combination between the meanings of those terminologies, we try to come to the basics and disengaging the meanings and consequences or the contractual consequences of these terminologies on the claiming and contractual relationship and commercial relationship. Just make sure, please, that you are muted, and just make sure also that you are not opening the video, so we avoid exposing something that should not be exposed. Anyways, let's start our meeting. I think you can see now the presentation in your share screen. The title is What a Delay Analyst Cannot Be Unaware of. And we are going to focus. This is not a content or outline. The outline is coming. The outlines are coming. We are going to focus in two major points. Disengaging, which I have just translated. Disengaging terminologies for better claim submission and review. And in the second session, and partially in this session, we will just try to discuss defining losses, damages, prolongation, and expenses associated with extension of time. EOT stands for extension of time. The practical part or the case study part of this session will be a complete example of calculating the prolongation cost. And across or all along the session, we will be delivering some cases. I will give you some stories, some related stories to the session topic. As an introduction, let's just first start with the normal introduction, which is myself. I'm not going to spend much in this slide. I'm a civil engineer, graduated from Ain Shams University, 2001-2002. Currently, I'm working in the USA, a company called HDR. I have achieved some credentials related to project management and expert determination from the RICS. I had the pleasure and honor of designing a delay analysis training associated or in accordance with the Association for Advancement of Cost Engineers recommended practices. I used to be a member and certified project management professional, as I mentioned. I have a degree in change management, and I used to be the ex-president. I'm the ex, not the current. The current president is our mentor, one of my mentors, Dr. Walid Al-Nimr, but I used to be the elected president for Association for Advancement of Cost Engineers Greater Cairo chapter 2020. And I had the pleasure also of delivering some papers related to forensic analysis and risk management. With every single lecture I deliver, I bring the coming opening statements. The first one is in Arabic and English. I have a supplication to the great mighty Allah for those who believes. The supplication in Arabic is كفانا الله وإياكم شر المتأكدين. May Allah protect us from the harm of the ascertains. The point here is very simple, is that in applied science, normally in applied science, allow me first to just shut down the camera to stop distracting you. So I'm going to get back to the presentation again. This means that any applied science topic can, or any information or conclusion can be criticized, changed, revised based on conscious and sound practitioners. So whatever I'm going to deliver here, it can be discussed, criticized, or even overwritten by someone who is bringing something better in terms of application and practicality. I used to deliver in a certain way 10 years ago, and I used to deliver certain principles. Now I can find myself, or I can confirm that I'm delivering some other things in the contrary principles. So it's a matter of I'm not certain about anything. I'm just trying to share knowledge. I'm not lecturing here, especially that we have in our attendance, we are honored to have two of my major main mentors and teachers, Joel Ammar and Ejtar Abdulaziz. If they are there, my greetings and my appreciation to your esteemed selves and good selves. So again, I'm not certain about anything. I'm just I spent some time searching, studying, and actually in this lecture I will contradict and I will try to criticize some of the principles that I delivered in my trainings. So كفانا الله وإياكم شر المتأكدين, and this is also confirmed by a statement mentioned at the beginning of RP 2903 by the association, stating that a departure from a recommended protocol should not be automatically treated as an error or a deficiency if such departure is based on conscious and sound application of schedule analysis principle or any analysis principle. So they are simply say that if you come up with something that is not in our standards, we can accept it and we can discuss it as long as you have a proper justification and proper analysis or cautious sound of application related to your whatever you are bringing. So this is just an opening statement. We will have two sessions. The session will be, I called it lectures, but we will, in today's session, we will go for claims overview, entitlement to compensation, which is very important, designating or disengaging. Disengaging means فض اشتباك again. Disengaging terminologies for better claim submission and review, because in my experience as mostly expert witness, I'm not an arbitrator because I'm not coming from the background of contract administration. I'm coming from the background of project controls. So normally my experience in arbitrational cases are related to expert witnessing. So I had the pleasure of expert witnessing in Egypt and here in the US. Normally there is a great engagement between terminologies, especially when it comes to delay analysis. So what I'm going to do here is trying just to disengage the terminologies. So we understand that concurrency is just one terminology under a big terminology called apportionment, as we are going to see. And then we will just discuss or try to discuss prolongation cost, and we will end up today with a prolongation cost case study. Case study means that I'm going to close the application and open Excel sheet and go walk you through the process of calculating the prolongation cost. In lecture number 2, it's less topics but more content. We will talk about the apportionment. We will start today. I will just pronounce it slowly. apportionment, okay? Like our mentor Tawfiq, I don't know what was his name, the guy who's presenting a famous program in Egypt long time ago. Tawfiq Uqash. Yes, he pronounced when I start pronouncing apportionment, I remember that he was trying to pronounce an English word like I'm doing, like my what I'm doing now. Anyways, apportionment concept, we will touch base on this today, and then we will go for apportionment loss and or expenses, and we will give some time to some extension of time tricky examples. So I prepared for you 5 examples. If we are out of time next session, we will do another session. But I collected 5 controversials again, tricky examples for extension of time that require some effort in thinking about a workaround, and I'm planning to present them. Apportionment is a very big topic. It's a big chapter in one of the major reference book for construction claims. And again, we cannot understand or disengage the terminologies of concurrency without understanding what is apportionment. My sources, and this is a very I put it in the beginning because it's really important. My sources, my main sources, I have more than these sources. However, my main sources are this green book by Andrew Boor, Delay and Disruption in Construction Contracts, 5th edition. Unfortunately, I don't have this. I don't remember that I have the soft copy, but I have the hard copy. And I have also the Schedule Assessment Guide by the U.S. Government Accountability Office. This is free, by the way. This is a free. This is available free at the website of the government of U.S. Government Accountability Office, and this is a very valuable book in terms of evaluating the schedule. And of course, I have the Association for Advancement of Cost Engineers International Recommended Practices, RP, RP 2903 Forensic Schedule Analysis, and RP 52E06 the Prospective Time Impact Analysis. I have more than these sources will come across the presentation, and I will mention them once I touch base on any of these references. However, those were my major sources. The green book is something like 1,400 pages, and there is a chapter, I remember 20 or 21, a complete chapter talking about apportionment only. And there is another complete chapter, I'm sure that it's chapter 18, is talking about the concurrency only. So you can imagine that these are 2 big topics. And this is one, and this and another one with the red cover called by I remember the name of the author, who's Andrew Wickwire, David Wickwire, and the other book is Construction Schedule Liability and Claims, and this is a very valuable book as well. But I didn't use it extensively in this presentation. Just quickly, some ground rules, how we are going to administer this presentation before kicking off the main technical content. I will deliver in English again, simple, straightforward. I will talk slowly, and if I reach any terminology that I know that it's a bit complicated, I will translate it in Arabic. However, in turn, once we open questions, you are free to ask either in Arabic or English. Questions, please, if you have a question during my presentation, write it down. Either we will have some time at the end of this presentation to receive an answer question, the answer question related to the availability of time, or you have the group and we have 1 week up to next lecture. Send me your question anytime. I will either reply personally to this question, or I will write it down and answer it if it is a question that its answer can benefit everyone. I will answer it at the beginning of the next session. So there is no problem with that. Just during the session, hold your questions, hold your horses, write down your questions, and we will discuss it later in either in this session or in the coming session. And the group, again, I mentioned this at the beginning, the group will not be closed. The group will remain forever. So you can ask me any questions, and I'm responsive given that, but please be mindful that I'm 9 hours or 10 hours before you. You are ahead of me by 10 or 9 hours, depends where you are geographically are. If you are in Egypt, you are plus 9 hours. If you are in Saudi Arabia or wherever in Gulf, you are plus 10. So it's now 11:20 in the morning in Utah, US. So again, the first 30 minutes of the third ground rule is related to next session. The first 30 minutes of the next lecture is for questions, is designated for questions. Again, if there is a case or something, if you have a case or a complicated case or something, you are welcome to ask. However, just keep this in personal. Personal means that you are asking me in the group, and I will answer in the group. I will just elaborate. And again, I'm responsive. I've started this lecturing since 2005, and I've started lecturing project management in deep, which means Primavera and extension of time and risk, since 2009. And I'm still receiving questions from those who I met 10 or 15 years ago, and I'm answering. Maybe I'm late a little bit, but I'm answering. Unless I'm asleep or died, I will answer. Don't worry. Going forward, I will kick off the technical content now. But again, don't worry about the questions. You will be provided the material in PDF for the presentation and in Excel for the case study. So you will have the native file of calculation related to prolongation cost. I will open it, and then you will have it. And you will have the PDF copy of this presentation. And of course, as another ground rule, this session is being recorded, and it will be distributed to your good selves at some point after we finish. Okay, let's kick off. Let's kick off. Okay, I'm just opening. Okay, first, we are going to discuss something called claims overview. I have 2 slides only under this topic. I'm going also to try not to be boring, so I'm going just to try to put some stories, some case studies along the long writing. There is another important thing that you will notice in my slides. I'm not following the concept of picture and 2 words in developing my slides. I normally put a lot of information in the slides. But I'm not going to play some shawali and just do some readings or even something like podcasting my presentation like I'm describing a football game. But I'm not going to read it word by word. But I put them like this to enable you to have a summary of what I'm delivering, of whatever reference I read and I'm sharing knowledge with. So don't expect to have a picture and words. You will have picture and some elaborated statements. So just bear with me, but I'm not going to read it one by one. And I highlighted some important points in these slides by either bold or different color. Anyways, let's go for claims. Normally, as Mr. Jim Zach, one of our grandmasters in project controls and contract, stated that if you are willing not to have claims during construction, you are willing not to have construction. So claims is a matter of fact in any construction project. Excuse me?
I see.
Please mute yourself. Kindly mute yourselves, guys, please. So, again, claims is a matter of fact when we are dealing with construction. So, if you are working with construction, you will have claims. Claims, as a concept, are dispute over facts, not over law. So, we are not discussing whether it's legal or not legal. We are discussing the facts, the understanding of the facts. So the party that keeps better records to preserve the facts, what happened, or the party that is better trained to recognize a problem is going to have an advantage. And this is typical in claims. And the party that contemporaneously بشكل معاصر أو بشكل محدث that is contemporaneously observes and records relevant critical facts will have not only better records, but the better ability to address claim issues. These are universal facts. If you if you are having a system or you are implementing a system that preserves the facts in terms of documentation and you have the team that is able to recognize that there is a problem, and there is something I learned from Joel before, they established something called early warning. Early warning means that we have a problem. It's not a problem now, but it's a potential problem. And I had the pleasure also to attend 2 days ago. I'm working on a major project here in Utah, and we have conducted last week, last Thursday, and Wednesday and Thursday, we have conducted something called risk workshop. And I witnessed a real workshop that is anticipating the potential problems in a project for we stayed for 2 full days in a lecture hall or some or a meeting room, a big meeting room, recognizing every single fact that might impact the project once we start construction, and we are pre-construction. Once you are in construction, you will be more able to recognize that there is a problem coming, especially when you have a good communication lines and communication protocol with the contractor. So the party that reserves fact and recognize problems, and the party, of course, who has contemporaneously observed or that contemporaneously observes the record, the party who is documenting records in a contemporaneous fashion, in a طريقة محدثة بشكل محدث, in a contemporaneous fashion. So this is just, again, universal facts about claims. When we come to, and this is actually the major core of this session and the coming session, when we come to submitting a claim, we will have a shorter definition that says, and the source is down there in the left, Institute for Construction Claim Practitioners. This is a very reputable and respectful organization that delivers knowledge and share knowledge and delivers standards for claims and arbitration. A claim is an assertion, تأكيد, of parties' right, تأكيد أو طلب parties' right under the contract or at law. So a party is asking for something that he believes that this something is of his right under the contract, the construction contract, or the law of the country, of course. But okay, this is a general description or general definition of a claim. However, if you are going to submit a claim, even if it's your right, you have to follow the CEES concept. C stands for cause. You have to state in your submission what happened, and you have to illustrate the effect. What was the effect? Time and money. And you have to prove the entitlement. Does the contract entitle the contractor to claim or not? Maybe maybe we have something in you believe that it's your claim and it's covered by the contract. And after the proving, stating the cause and analyzing the effect and proving the entitlement, you have to provide the substantiation. Substantiation means simply that every statement made or fact related upon, if every statement you mention in your claim and every fact you preserved and related upon in the claim should be substantiated. Substantiated means ترجع إلى ملفاتها التي تثبتها, which means that you go and say that I received this instruction at that date in this meeting. You have to provide in your claim submission the meeting agenda and the reference number and whatever the auditor or the reviewer needs to verify that you have received the instruction at that time, at that date, at that event. So always remember the CEES concept for any claim. If any one of those fails, the claim will have less opportunity to succeed, or maybe the claim will be rejected in the first place. So CEES, cause, effect, entitlement, substantiation, and this goes for any claim, any type. Anyways, so moving forward to the entitlement for compensation, the entitlement to compensation. What if we, of course, here this is not a typical extension of time or delay analysis session. So when we come to entitlement to compensation, we have just to touch base on something. Entitlement to compensation, we have to touch base on something that we have when it comes to delay. There is excusable and non-excusable, and we are not talking about the unexcusable or non-excusable or not excusable. The three terms are correct in terms of language. When we come to the excusable, we have some compensable delay and non-compensable delay. And normally the non-compensable delay is what is related to concurrency or the force majeure, unless the contract says anything else. And there is another ground rule here, a mid-level ground rule, mid-session ground rule, that whatever I'm going to deliver here, this falls under something called best practices or practical implementation. If your project contract says something else, contrary to whatever reference we are referring to, your contract prevails. So first of all, you have to review the project contract, RPC. RPC means review the project contract. There is another terminology of this, but I'm not going to mention it here for the sake of courtesy. Anyways, coming to the entitlement for compensation. So in delay, and just try to separate your mind in two portions now. One thinks about delay, one thinks about general compensation, because this is what we need in this session and the next. You have to separate between if I am as a contractor is entitled to be paid, or, and I intentionally put it in the example today. I intentionally put something related to this in the example today, as we are going to see. But you have to separate between I have suffered the loss and I need to be compensated for this loss, and I am delayed and I have suffered a loss because of this delay, and I'm entitled to be compensated for this loss. Both are losses, but sometimes we need to disengage, and that's why I called the session what a delay analyst cannot be unaware of. Okay, because normally, first of all, I have a conservatism about the term delay analyst because it will limit your job to firefighting. When you have a delay analysis or you have a claim, you start operate. Not less than this or other than this, you're ideal. So delay analysis is a very repeatable and respectable job, of course, and very complicated task, and requires some extra skills. And I've been doing this since 2009, so I know that this is a complicated point and this is a complicated task. And I know for sure that every case is a case, and every case is a single case, and whatever methods we are following and whatever courses we are taking and whatever discussions we are conducting, we will always have something new in our case. But anyways, this is not the point. The point is sometimes it got mixed between my entitlement, the contractor's entitlement, or the employer review of this entitlement to damages related to delay and damages in general. I'm going to go to the next slide. I'm going to give you a story after this slide. This slide is defining not the prolongation cost, it defines damages in general. It says, according to the law of nature, this is by Shishron, it's something, a quote from the BC. BC means before Christ. According to the law of nature, and this is implemented, by the way, in concept by those who are working with arbitrational laws and arbitration. And maybe most of you or some of you are more experienced than I am in this portion of disputes. According to the law of nature, it is only fair that no one should be richer through damages and injuries suffered by other. That's why in our claim, in simple words, we don't pay profit for claims. We don't pay profit for losses. You are entitled in terms of claim. If you suffer a loss, you will be paid this loss with interest, if any. If interest, I mean bank interest. But you are not going to profit from this loss. In some special cases, you are. But in general, you don't get profit from losses. And it goes further in another reference stated down there, where two parties have made two parties. So in terms of damages and claims, we still have two parties or more. When two parties have made a contract, which one of them has broken, so two conditions, two parties, one party broken the contract, the damage which the other party owe to receive in respect of such breach of contract, so we have to have a breach of contract, should be such as many fairly and reasonably by considered either arising naturally according to the usual course of things from such breach of the contract itself, or such as may reasonably be supposed to have been in the contemplation of both parties at the time they made the contract as probable result of the breach. It's a really complicated statement saying simply, if there is a contract and one party of this contract breached this contract, he has to pay a reasonably calculated damages related to what he breached. No more than this, as simple as this. It will be more elaborated in this slide. And as I mentioned again in my interim ground rule I mentioned 5 minutes ago, this is not a picture statement slides. These are not picture statement slides. I put some extra information here to enable you to get some information when you read the slide. Anyways, but I'm not going to play Hossam Shawali again. Normally, if you go and read the left part, when it comes to damage, you have something called four-phase analysis to prove this damage. Four-phase analysis to prove this damage. So the claim has the four-phase, but when it comes to illustrating or explaining the damages or proving the damages, you have to go to a four-phase analysis. The four-phase analysis are detailed analysis of the contract documentation, identification, the duties of the parties. So we prove the breach and highlight who is the breacher. Cause and effect, identify the cause and what is the effect, and establish what was the active cause. Maybe a damage has more than one cause. Like we have a disruption that delayed the project or has not delayed the project, or we have an event that delayed the project. So we suffered a force majeure, or we suffered something, a financial crisis or an inflation that raised the cost of the contractor or encountered the contractor for extra losses due to exceeding the time for completion because of the original event. So the active one is the event. How are we going to pay the contractor or compensate the contractor? There's something else. However, if we have more than one cause that caused the damage, we need to understand whether there is an active cause. Active cause means this is the cause that impacted really or caused really the damage, or there are more than one cause, or all the causes are impacting the schedule. And we'll have an example in the right side. And then we start calculating. So calculating the increased caused by this, and this is correlated to the type of damages. So if you are calculating disruption, is far different from calculating the prolongation cost. It's far different from calculating the variation and variation orders cost. It's far different from calculating the force majeure cost, if any. It's far different from calculating the cost escalation. These are methods of calculation depending on the type of damage itself. Okay, so let's just again, the claim we have the cause effect entitlement substantiation, but when you are doing or calculating the damages, you have to go to the 4 phases. Prepare detailed analysis, identify the causes and active causes, establish what was the active cause, identify the causes and the active causes, and then determine the method to calculate this one. If we go to the right side, we will have 2 main important statements. First, something related to something called the burden of proof. And in most of the books, the claimant has the burden of proving every element of the case, including in the damages that flow from a lead breach, liability and causation, and amount of the damage incurred. He's also having the burden of proof this, and to establish the proximate cause between the breach and the damage. What does this mean? I have faced a lot of issues in claims that the contractor is submitting a claim and expecting the employer to prove the contrary. Again, the contractor is submitting a claim for disruption or damages, and by the way, some of which are here in the US. So it's not exclusive to immature markets or something like this. But anyways, again, I'm going to repeat this because this is important. Sometimes the contractor is submitting a claim saying that I suffered these losses, and he's expecting either to be paid or the employer approves the contrary, approve that he has not suffered these damages, or has not incurred these losses, or he has no advantage to ask for the and actually this is contrary to all the principles that I know. Normally, in most of the reference book I went through, in most of the cases that I've been through, the burden of proof of the liability, the burden of proof of all elements, the liability, and most importantly, the correlation between the cause and the impact. In simple words, does this cause caused this impact or not? And there is 2 cases down there. There is a case here called Manson versus King in 2003, in which the court observed that there was no causal relationship. The contractor was submitting a claim saying that this happened and I suffered this impact, and that the court of I think this is a trial court, not an appeal court in the US, and mostly in the common law, and maybe this is not correctly totally or 100% correct. We have here in the US trial, appeal, supreme. I think it's somehow the same in other arbitrational courts. I mean here in the arbitrations in the trials. Anyways, in Egypt, I used to have arbitration only. This is if it's a contractor dispute. I'm talking here about a court of law. Here it's not separated like Egypt. The court of law here is the same as the court of arbitration in our side of the world, in Middle East or the other side of the world. But anyways, here I think this is a US case. In simple, the court the court saw that the cause demonstrated by the contractor has no relation with the damages after, of course, the expert review. Okay, so if the cause cannot be related to the damages, that mostly the claim will not be successful. So there is a cause. The court stated that there is no causal relationship between the contractor's breach and failure, and this is actually quite the contrary. It's the employer, not the contractor. Between the contractor's breach to failure to accelerate the progress of the work pursuant to the instruction and the losses suffered by the employer when the work was not completed. So it simply says that the contractor failed to accelerate, so the employer suffered damages. So here, in this case, the contractor suffered, the employer suffered losses, and he is claiming that the contractor has caused these damages because of failing to accelerate the project. The court here, after reviewing the case, and this is not the point, that the court, after reviewing the case, found out that there is no relationship between the cause and the effect, the cause and the effect. And here, the claimant is not the contractor. The claimant was the employer. He's claiming liquidated damages or delayed damages. So anyways, my point here is the claimant, whoever he is, the contractor or the employer. The employer normally claims for delayed damages, prolongation, we can call it prolongation cost, due to staying at site for a very long time, loss of opportunities. We will see this in details in the coming slides. Normally, the claimant is liable for proving the liability, the causation, and the relationship or the correlation between the cause and effect. I'm going to give you another story from Egypt, from the beloved Egypt. The story of CA new headquarters. CA stating for Crédit Agricole. Okay. The employer stated that, or the employer claimed that he has the right to implement liquidated damages on the contractor because the contractor has not completed the project at the contractual time for completion. And he issued a case to the Dispute Resolution Board, and he already started implementing liquidated damages. Not delayed damages, sorry. It's different in Middle East, but they are mostly the same here in the US. Okay? And I will never go to the misery of comparing between the market in the Middle East and the market in the US. There is no much comparison, or there is no comparison at all between the two markets, not because one of them is superior than the other, but because they are different. As simple as this. Different law, different unit of measure, different method of management, a lot of different things. But anyways, this is not a session for differentiating between the market in the US and market in other countries. Anyways, this is the point. Again, we are coming back to Crédit Agricole new headquarter case. In this case, again, the employer issued a request to implement or apply liquidated damages, and the time for completion was 14th of October 2014, and the project was not finished at that time. However, he proved that he has the entitlement by contract to implement delayed damages if the contractor has not finished the time for completion at this one. And I mean the employer has the ability to correlate or say that I have suffered the damage of loss of opportunity and investment and paying extra rental and for this project. And this is because of the contractor has not completed the project, and I cannot benefit from the building. And the clever contractor submitted only one document that disadvantaged the employer from this claim. He submitted a newspaper publication on the 15th of September, paid by Crédit Agricole, saying that we had our grand opening for our HQ. So nothing happened. You have benefited from the building, and you have received the building, and you announced publicly that the building is completed and operational. So there is no causation between, or there is no correlation between what you have suffered. Maybe you have suffered these losses because of something else, but if you are trying as a claimant, as the one who has the burden of proof upon him to prove that these losses are because of this event, I don't think so. And the claim was disadvantaged by the dispute board, and they went to a settlement afterward, and the settlement was done, and the project now is, for those who are living in New Cairo, you will see a very beautiful building standing at the ring road, I think, and with very beautiful color and very beautiful lighting every night. So this is what I want to illustrate related to damages in this slide. Normally, the SCL, Society of Construction Law Delay and Disruption Protocol, when we go to the parties, normally we have a context diagram of each project consisting of two major parties, the contractor and the employer. The employer, maybe he has some project management consultancy's office, or service provider who is the design consultant or supervision consultant, or like my last project in Egypt, NBK headquarter, we have the project manager and the supervision consultant and designer in one entity, which is the esteemed Dar Al Handasa, one of the best companies and enterprises related to design and project management in Egypt, in the world, actually, not in Egypt. And normally we do have a context diagram, but the main, we do have normally a complicated context diagram with another complicated communication protocol, but it's simply, when it goes to the endpoint of dispute, we have the contractor and the employer. We will go for entitlement. We are still in the entitlement to compensation. We will go for contractor entitlement to compensation. And normally, when the contractor cost, if progress of work interfered by the employer, the contractor will suffer direct cost incurred for duration of delay to progress, including ideal equipment cost, incremental cost, premium, wages, overtime, multiple shifts, and direct cost related to site preliminaries and overheads and head office support for the prolonged duration, and indirect cost, loss of profit, unearned overheads, loss of opportunities, and this cannot be quantified in an easy way. So the SCL is giving an advice here, and it gives this advice in more detail later. It gives a simple advice saying that argument about proof loss could be reduced or avoided altogether if the contract contained an argument amount per day that can be applied to each day of prolongation. If we are evaluating the compensation from the contractor, from the employer side, yes, but for the contractor, it's a bit more complicated. If the employer has an entitlement to compensation, he will be entitled to either direct cost, loss of investment, extended cost, actually loss of investment and extended cost and rent, head office overheads. This is what Crédit Agricole claimed. Loss of investment, extended cost, storage cost, rent, head office overheads, salaries and cost of engineering, the supervision consultant and the PM, relevant interest rate, if any, indirect cost, loss of profit, compensation for delay into public. And this is very remarkable point here, because in some countries, when you are dealing with public projects, you have something called commitment to the public. So if you are disturbing the traffic or disturbing the public by noise or something like this, and you have to determine, or you have to set a date when this will end to the public. And if you pass this date, the public has the right by law to come over you and ask for compensation. So this is a very important point. Hopefully it will be implemented somewhere that is where it's important. Yani. Anyways, let's not talk about politics. For delay in public, escalation, if an escalation happened, asset depreciation, inconvenience, relevant interest rate. So not only the contractor, if the contractor should not complete the work by the due date, the employer can expect it to retrieve damages. And it's more straightforward for the employer, because normally in most of the contract all over the world, there is a clause saying that if you delayed by 1 day, the day will cost us X. So we calculate the calendar days, and this is very important when we come to the case study, that we are calculating based on calendar days, not working days. So even if you calculate by working day, you have to convert it to calendar days, as we are going to see in practical. This is the real statement of the SCL. I just copy pasted here so that we understand that the SCL is saying that please try to solve the problem before getting into a contractual relationship. Put it in the contract, saying that how can we calculate damages, not only the delay damages. This is this is the easy part actually. The hard part or the difficult part is what we see in cases of concurrency, prolongation, definition of prolongation, the method of extension of time calculation. I can assure that I've been through directly and indirectly a lot of cases between contractors and employers as either a third party, independent party that is providing his opinion, or as a part of the project team. I can assure you that 90% of the problems comes that 90% of the problems come from absence of identification of the methods or the reference or the way of calculating the concurrency. So I've seen a lot people sitting on a table and saying that you are not even entitled to extension of time. Why, Mr. Employer? Because you delayed first. And because you have, yeah, I delayed you. I caused a delay as an employer, but you were delayed. So I'm not going to give you any extension until you recover your delay, and then we talk about extension. And the contractor is saying that you are totally wrong. You have caused me delays, and there is a delay event that is proved and recorded and substantiated, and this caused a real delay to the project. The surprise is that they are both correct, but they are following different concepts. The employer is talking, presuming that we are applying something called delay precedence, and the contractor is talking that we are applying the normal case of not applying the delay precedence. So if, and it gets more funny when we go, it's not funny, it's just a black comedy, when we start discussing the method of analysis. Of course, this is not the right context to discuss the method of analysis. We have my calculation, and this is my view. My calculation came up that we have more than 65 method of analysis. Just doing some calculus between the SCL definitions and the RP definition. In the RP, we have 18. We have 3.1 to 3.9, and we have 2 cases under each one. These are the method implementation protocol. And we have something like 5 in the SCL. If you go to cases and just look theoretically in the paper and just try to do some calculus, you will find out that you can have 65 cases, 65 methods under each case. I prefer, this is Hossam's point of view, I prefer the methods or the structure of the RP. I worked with both. I started working with the SCL at 2009, and I shifted to the RP in 2012. But anyways, both are respectable. Of course, is not Hossam is the one who's going to criticize a great organization like the SCL or the Association for Advancement of Cost Engineers. But the point is, normally everyone is avoiding, everyone, I mean those who are going into contractual relationship, avoids putting clear definition of what and how we calculate the delay, or how we calculate or evaluate delays. The best way is to put something called, we use time impact analysis. And the surprise is that out of the 65, there are 39 methods. I'm just writing down the 39 methods that can be called the time impact analysis, unless you are dealing with the time impact analysis as the prospective analysis. So this is something else. But anyways, this is not the point. The point is the SL is stating here that please try to avoid the picture at the right. Try to avoid this. Try to avoid the deaf discussions by just setting some rules at the beginning of the contractual relationship. Maybe this rule is that we are going to follow the reference X to evaluate the delay analysis. We are going to follow the reference Y to evaluate the damages. Okay, okay. I have a question here because we start losing people. Are you bored or not? Just answer if you can. Open the mute and give me an answer. Just because I feel that I'm talking too much. So are you bored or not?
No, please carry on. Please.
Okay.
No, sir.
Doing well?
No.
That's great. That's great. That's great. So let's start designating. Start designating means that we are going in deep of what we. Oh, I'm sorry. Something went wrong. Sorry. Start designating means that we are going to try to disengage. Disengage means فض اشتباك. Disengage the word why I am right, or disengage some terminologies that are related to calculating the cost. And again, I implemented intentionally in the case study that we are going through, and I'm not going to commit to 2 hours. Maybe we will exceed the 2 hours, but anyways, I have to disengage some terminologies. So the first terminology to disengage, again, don't expect picture statement. It's a more detailed slide, but I'm not going to commit to read each and single word. Right to compensation, aside from variation. Variation is something is asked for by the employer, and he will pay for it. Variation means add another AHU, air handling unit, add another kitchen unit, add another whatever. So he's going to pay for it, and he's going to pay for the consequences of time coming from it. And delay to completion. Okay. Again, we are disengaging now the right to compensation, not variation. Forget about variation. Right to compensation in general, and delay to completion. And there is a very interesting statement in the reference book and verified in the RP and the SCL delay and disruption protocol. The statement says, events giving rise to right to compensation, just mind this one, have nothing to do with delay to completion. And we will have one example in the next slide, and we will continue like this. Again, events giving rise to right to compensation have nothing to do, and all these statements go both ways. Right to compensation from the contractor side or from the employer side if he didn't get his job on time. Again, I will just bore you a little bit and repeat this statement again. Event giving rise to right to compensation have nothing to do with delay to completion, for which contractor may be granted relief from liquidated damages or delay damages, whatever your contract is describing, whether it's delay or liquidated. Okay, I know that there is a huge difference between two in our contract, in FedEx contract and Middle Eastern contract, but it's an American reference, so they are calling it both liquidated damages. Anyways, we have, and he gave 4 examples to this statement or this event. The first one, delay to progress caused by the contractor and caused losses, but on floated activities. So the time for completion has not been impacted.
for a reason. So the contractor suffered losses, yes, and he can prove these losses, yes. He brought extra resources. He brought special resources. He stood idle. And he could not demobilize these equipments or resources from site to another site. And this is not a pacing delay. So in case number 1, delay to progress by the employer to an activity which is in float. So there is no and cannot affect the completion date and be subject and be the subject of extension of time. So there is no extension of time. May nevertheless cause contractor to suffer loss and or expenses, as I mentioned, either disruption. He requested some implementation, or he delayed some approvals, or he delayed some permits, and these permits are on floated delays, but in order to recover this one, or it caused the contractor to pay extra money, or pay extra wages, or set some resources as ideal, or something like this. But anyways, will be this, and actually I put something in the example that will clarify this more. The second case is where completion is delayed beyond certified completion, so that contractor is relieved from liquidated damages, and the project is completed, but the contractor is still doing works, although he got the extension, completed the work, delivered the work, but the contractor is still paying rents, doing the closeout, some asphalts, some being done after the project is completed. If they are not part of the project, maybe he's cleaning up some of the damages or of the extra storages prolonged after the time for completion. If these activities that are being done after the time of completion and delivery of work can be related to the employer impact, the contractor can be based on the contract, of course, can be entitled to compensation. The third and fourth points are very interesting. Some contracts, some mostly ad hoc contract. Ad hoc means that written by the employer himself, not following a certain template like FEDIC or JCT or NAC, or even the American contract, the ANSI here. But in some contracts, the EOT, extension of time clauses, are isolated from reimbursable clauses. Again, EOT, not IOT, EOT clauses are separated from the reimbursable clauses. Actually, in some contracts, the employer is intentionally separating the extension of time clauses and do some languages, or put some languages not in a bad faith, but adding some languages that restrict the contractor from recovering the losses based on the reimbursing, or based on suffering losses because of employer actions. The great example of this, that most of the developers in the Middle East and some of the developers in Europe are giving themselves the right in the contract to ask for events and grant only time without any prolongation or reimbursement to these events. The surprise is that there are some cases listed in the reference book where these contracts are adopted, but the contractor could prove that he suffered losses, and the court entitled the contractor to be paid these losses. Although it is not, it's mentioned in the contract that he's entitled only to time, but he proved that he suffered losses. So yes, but this is normally, for the term of relationship, the contractor is not escalating to this point at most of the cases, but at some cases, yes, they do. The last one, in some contract, the contractor is entitled to extension of time for likely effect of an event on completion relief before the liquidated damages become deductible. However, the contractor can never be reimbursed losses or expenses that it has not actually suffered. This has two sides. The first side, that maybe the contractor suffer losses that cannot be quantified. And if we return back to this one in direct cost, loss of profit, unearned overheads, loss of opportunities. These losses, can be, but it's very difficult to quantify these kind of losses. So the contractor normally or can suffer such losses and cannot quantify these losses or prove these losses. The same goes with the employer. The employer can suffer such losses, but he cannot quantify these losses. So what can we conclude from this slide? And we can disengage these terms, that it's not conditioned to have an extension of time to ask for reimbursement. And this is actually, when we do extension of time, this is a very another controversial point. The controversial point here is that we understand that all reimbursement are related to delays. And we can go and investigate the concurrency and go understand how much we quantify in these terms. But when we calculate prolongation cost in our example, you will see that this is not correct. Moving forward, this is a typical example of what is in the previous slide. The disruption and delay. The disruption is something that extension of time versus disruption claims. This is just clarifying the previous one. Maybe the point 3 and 4 are not common, but point 1 and 2 are very common, and the disruption is a clear example of designating or disengaging the extension of time AOT versus disruption claims. Disruption is the loss of productivity, disturbance, hindrance, or interruption to the contractor normally working method, resulting in lower efficiency. The employer is asking for something like doing extra tests or something like extra requirement. This can be a request that requires only or impacts only by extra hours. So here I'm disrupted. I was planning to pay 10 hours here, but I'm paying 20 hours. There is no impact on the time from completion, or maybe there is an impact, but it's not a condition in case of disruption to have a time impact, not time impact analysis, a time impact. This statement is copied from most of the previous reference, and I've witnessed this in a disruption claim here last December, that disruption is not associated with extension of time. Contractor may be entitled to cost it has incurred in relation to non-critical path works, in so far the delay to progress affect the cost of performance with additional effort. That's why, and mark this word because I heard it and I didn't understand it in the first place, but it turned to be a very important word. Acceleration is a sort of disruption. Acceleration is a type of disruption. If the contractor, just imagine this scenario, and this scenario, I practically witnessed this scenario. The contractor suffered delays in a very big part of the project. This was a highway project. The contractor suffered a big impact in an interchange in the highway here. And this impact is totally caused by the employer. The contractor has gone through the CEES process. He granted 1 year of extension of time. with the prolongation cost because there was no concurrency in this case. But the contractor said, we can consider this theoretically, not contractually, as a disruption, not as an extension of time. And I can recover this year by something called acceleration claim. And I will report you all the extra hours, extra material, extra whatever, equipment hour, man hours, and I'm going to recover this year. And we call it acceleration claim. In terms of title, it's an acceleration claim. But in terms of, if you think about it for a little bit, maybe this is not contractually correct, maybe, or correct, but if you think about it, it's a disruption. The employer disrupted the progress by something, and the contractor is implementing extra hours, extra shift, and extra work to recover this delay, and the contractor is paying for the extra hours. So somehow disruption is something the employer does, and this something causes extra hours or extra man hours or extra equipment hour or extra maybe extra material or different material type or something like this that will require more hours to be erected, or material that will require shipment lag or something like this. But it's not a condition to have an extension of time associated with. However, in the other side, the delay means state of extended duration of an activity or state of activity not having started or finished on time relative to its predecessor. This delay is caused by the employer and impacts the critical path, shall entitle the contractor to extension of time. Extension of time associated with something called prolongation cost. Prolongation cost means you will pay the losses that suffered by the extra money paid by the contractor suffered during this prolongation cost associated with extension of time, and should be calculated over additional period caused by the delay events. That is the delay to progress caused by the event, and not the consequential effect of completion caused by the delay to progress. So normally, it's in simple words, the prolongation cost is calculated over the duration extended, the extended duration of the project caused by this event. So it has to be caused by the particular event, regardless the method you are using. You are using observational, or you are using the modeled one using fragments. This will lead us to the next step. And we are going to disengage. We are going to go to apportionment in details in the next session. However, we have to disengage concurrency from apportionment. So sit back, take a breath, and listen to some thoughts about concurrency. Concurrency is a state of calculation compelled in first place or invented in the first place to determine the compensability of prolongation cost to the contractor. And then some smart people from both sides decide to use concurrency to do some kind of, I'm not going to say play around, some kind of workarounds to the impact or to drive the concurrency to contribute to the calculation of delay itself, which is, in the opinion of most of the experts I met, and in my opinion, not 100% correct. Again, this is in the view of most of the experts I asked and discussed about concurrency. So what is concurrency? Is two causes impacting the critical path and happening concurrently. I'm not going to get in deep with the definition of true concurrency and literal concurrency and functional concurrency here. This will take too much time, and this is, yeah, I think this has been explained extensively in many other sessions and many other references. However, in a nutshell, concurrency or concurrent delay is something related to the calculation of compensability in first place. Some are using it for some other stuff. However, it's built in the first place to calculate the compensability period. Okay, what for? Compensability period. How to? It's complicated, but we will try to simplify it. Okay, so I'm going to, I don't know whether you can see my whiteboard now or not. Can you see my whiteboard? Please confirm. Can you see my whiteboard, guys?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
that's good. Okay, so normally we have something called, oh, okay. So I have to just because of my screen not, I will stop sharing. I will come back again. Just give me a second. So normally we have here the time for completion. First, we define the purpose of concurrency. The second, concurrency is related, and this is the normal project duration. Normally, concurrency is not concerning this area. The concurrency is concerning the events. So if there is an event here, delaying event happening or caused by the employer, and there is another delay event here caused by the contractor, we can theoretically call this a concurrency. So these two events are concurrent. This is step one, number one. When it comes to the effect, so there is a concurrency now. We don't look at the concurrency at this area. We are looking at the concurrency or detecting the concurrency in this area. Once we start calculating, we don't calculate in this area. We calculate in this area. So if event number one impacted the critical path like this, if event number one calculates or impacted the time for completion to be like this, it connected to some activities and it comes like this, regardless the method you are using. So this is the effect of event number one. And then event number two impacted the other one and comes to this effect. So the concurrency occurred here, the effect occurred here. We can call this zone the concurrency zone, and we don't pay for this. However, we give extension of time to all this period caused by the employer, and we pay for this period only. Okay, this is in a very, very summary way the common case and the general case of concurrency. This is not all cases. This is only the common case of concurrency. What I want you to know here as delay, and this is actually one of the things that the delay analyst cannot be aware of. The concurrency is detected, is being detected here, being calculated here, and in normal case, if the contract says nothing contrary to this, or if there is no special condition that drives the delay analyst to calculate literally or functionally related to the concurrency type, normally, in normal case, this is what this is how concurrency or concurrency analysis does. Okay, sorry, that's how we do concurrency analysis. Okay, again, this is a general case, but if we just go a step further, and if we step forward, that concurrency in its pure form presents few difficulties. This is one of the most controversial topic inside the topic of delay analysis. I can imagine this. And it is always a point of discussion, a point of dispute, a point of difference of opinion between the project parties. I just want to save some time for the case study. I'm staying with you. If you are not bored, I'm going to continue. even if I exceeded the 2 hours themselves. It's simply where two causes, one of which causes, if this is the definition coming from the reference, the Green Book reference, not the Green Book of Gaddafi, the Green Book I presented in the first slide. It's simply where two causes, we are talking about causes here, one of which is the liability of one party and the other on the liability of the other, result in the same losses. Liability either lies where it falls and neither party receives compensation. If this is a general concept of concurrency, saying that if the effect they are affecting the same, if both causes caused 15 days of delay to the time for completion, then the time of extension will be granted, but no one will be compensated because both will be paying their overheads. And there is a case that we will come to next session, which is called the City-In case. That this case, City-In case, if you want to Google it or search about the City-In case, 2008, 2009, 2010, between City-In and Shepherd, it's a hotel. In this case, established new method of calculating apportionment and concurrency, and we'll see the difference. So this, forget about the apportionment. This case itself established a new method of calculating concurrency. Can you imagine a court case established a new method of calculating concurrency? And this method, I had a very interesting discussion with one of your colleagues who attended my course before. His name is Engineer Ahmad. His last name is not in my mind. Gandakhli, something like this. Engineer Ahmad presented a very interesting presentation, free one related to City-In case. And the thing is, or the part is, or the funny thing is that although there was a clear concurrency that impact the time for completion between the two, this case, the contractor, although there is a concurrency, has been or had been granted prolongation cost and losses. And this is what, in a certain method of calculation of apportionment, this will be clarified that this is called a net effect method to calculate the apportionment, not the concurrency. So in terms of concurrency, the contractor has zero merit, zero prolongation cost. But in terms of apportionment, the contractor has money. How is this? I'm just giving you some exciting statements for the next session. But anyways, concurrency in the simple way, in a simple way, as I explained. In the concurrency, we will have the major rule. I'm just summarizing. I'm summarizing what I mentioned. The major rule of analyzing concurrency is determining the delay responsibility to attribute the damages, the money. Normally, employers are use concurrency, unfortunately, to avoid compensating the contracted delay attributed to employer's action and limit the compensation to time only. Most contracts do not enclose, unfortunately, also a clause that articulate how to determine, calculate, or attribute concurrency, unfortunately. But anyways, this is just in a nutshell. We have two cases of concurrency. Just watch the movie, which is not a movie. It's just a concurrency scenario. Normally, the concurrency is when we calculate concurrency. There is, this is planner's talk, P6 talks. When we calculate concurrency, we have two cases. One is the simple case. This is the time for completion. And this is when the concurrency or the events comes or impacts separate paths. So this is contractor delays, a separate critical path. You can do it by scheduling options, multiple float paths, and you can do separate by free float and see or present in P6 interface the multiple float paths you have in the project, presuming that you have adequately structured your time schedule. So if there are impact on two separate paths attributed to the contractor, it's simple. So the delay here, the delay in this part is a contractor delay. If another path at the same time is impacted by the employer, and this is another path, not the same path, so we have, this is the concurrency period, and the employer will pay for this period, the period between the two green lines. This is the simple way. If you can find that the impacts or the events impacted the two different paths or two separate paths in the time schedule, you can just simply calculate or isolate these paths either by codes or either by anything. And this is actually the good thing about this method is it's not restricted by delay analysis method, not like the next one, which is the employer delay and the contractor delay are coming on the same path, They are mixing the same path. Okay. On a mixed path or on the same path, it's a bit complicated because you have to be restricted or have to use a method of analysis that separates path slice by slice. Slice by slice means that in this case, when you have events are associated either in observational method or modeled method, if you are having two events, employer delay and contractor delay, on the same path, you have to study this path slice by slice. So you will tend to a window analysis slice, our window analysis for the extension of time, or time slicing analysis. So you will go for the first slice and separate the employer from the contractor and put this in a table, and this will not be accurate. The most accurate way to isolate them is the but-for, the 3.8 methods, the subtractive method, the but-for. But this is another complicated. It will lead you to another complicated way of analyzing the daily. But anyway, this is a complicated one. If you are a contract person, you are not required to get in deep with these details, because this is typically planning details. This is a way to separate that. And actually, one of the case studies that I'm going to present next session is a mixed path employer contractor impacted cost. But what you need to know now is that we have two cases of concurrency. If we are calculating or separating from P6 perspective, we have either both or the impacts or the causes are impacting two different methods or two different paths, or in one mixed path like this. Okay, and there are some. I'm not going to spend much time in this this slide, because it will be elaborated again in the apportionment part. In one of the most recognized Arabic reference of the extension of time by Dr. Firas, I'm horrible. I have a very good memory, by the way, but the problem, I'm horrible in remembering names. I keep up to now I keep mixing my niece's names. But anyways, his name is Dr. Firas. Anyways, he dedicated a chapter to the concurrency calculation, and this is a very valuable book. I will try to get it before next session and give it to you for those who, but it's in Arabic. And he put some methods or some general methods to calculate concurrency, like div-line, burden of proof, dominant cause method, Malmaison method. Malmaison is a hotel. First past the past method, apportionment method. And actually, I found out when I start disengaging the concurrency from apportionment that these are originally apportionment calculation method. I keep saying apportionment, and this is the slide where I separate or try to disengage the apportionment versus concurrency. Apportionment, gentlemen and ladies, is the most comprehensive and holistic way of calculating or assessing not the damages associated with extension of time, but the damages in general. Apportionment in Arabic means at-tanasub or proportional damages. If we have a big damage that impacted the project, how can we attribute the fair and reasonable portion to each party? So when we can say by this that concurrency is one sort of apportionment. Concurrency is not the apportionment. Concurrency is one sort of apportionment. But when it comes to apportionment, if we have a price escalation, for example, are we going to attribute the damages entirely to the employer? If the contract says so, it's okay. It's 100% apportionment. Okay, but sorry, something happened here. Are we going to attribute the entire damages to the contractor or the employer? Maybe, if the contract says so. If the contract is not saying anything, we have to come up with something. So apportionment is not only to designate or attribute the damages associated with delays, but it is the most comprehensive and holistic ways. We will come to the ways to calculate or to deal with damages in general. It is not only related to delay again, but every proven damages or losses. So apportionment can be for damages, for bonuses, saving, if you are doing something like value engineering or saving in losses. Damages is losses is when we I'm not going to just waste your time by designating damages from losses, but damages is something that someone causes the other party. Losses is different. Losses because maybe the contractor or the employer suffers losses like the fluctuation of currency, for example. This is a losses, not damages. Concurrency, force majeure, or unforeseen issues. Once something like this happen in the project, we need to implement, if the contract allows, some kind of apportionment to separate the money, the amount of money, or attribute the amount of money to the project parties. If the contract is not clear and saying that this damage is attributed 100% like the fluctuation. In my last project, for example, my last project in Egypt before I leave in last year, 2023, I leave temporarily just for a few years or few months. But anyways, my last project, the contract of phase 2, which is the fit out an MEP portion, which is the highest amount of money. We were contracting this project in an unstable environment related to the value of currency, the currency value of the great Arab Republic of Egypt. So, in order, and as a client, I was the client rep at that time. As a client, we wanted to secure the contractor because we need this project, because we need to finish this project and get the building. So, in order to have a good faith contract concept, we decided to cancel the apportionment in terms of changing the currency or of currency fluctuation. So we put a clause, a language in the contract states that if the Egyptian pound value changed from this point to this point, the employer will hold or will compensate the contractor with 100% of the difference. So we cancel the apportionment. If not, we can go and come up with another way to do this apportionment. So again, apportionment is the holistic way. It applies to everything, including the concurrency. And actually, I can say in clear mind that concurrency is a source or a kind of apportionment or a type of apportionment. And again, before we just jump to the prolongation cost and the example and the case study example, the entire session, the 90% of the coming session, an hour and a half of the coming session will be only talking about the apportionment in general, not apportionment related to concurrency. I just don't want to disengage this now, not getting into details of apportionment. And actually, you will receive the material. You found out that from slide 30 to slide 50 something, it's talking about the okay. We will go to the prolongation cost, and this is the practical. I hope I try to practicalize the previous part of the session, but now we are moving to the real example of prolongation cost, which is one of the topics, one of the major topics of this session. Prolongation cost. You've seen this before. It's associated with extension of time. When you don't have concurrency, or you have in the absence of concurrency, we can say that prolongation cost should be calculated at the time the cost incurred was. Record of delay resources are vital, so you have to record properly the delays of the resources are vital to cost claim success. So what is coming is commercial. Normally, if you have extension of time granted, no concurrency, you have to calculate the prolongation cost. The prolongation cost component is not only the site overhead or the head office overhead. The prolongation cost can be site management supervision, and just notice something here called standing time, idle resource, if any. This will be, I kept mentioning during the session that I put something in the example that will just somehow differentiate between the concurrency, sorry, not the concurrency, calculation of prolongation cost and the damages and the apportionment and this kind of stuff. So just bear with me. I still have 53% standing still until 1 hour 55 minutes. I've been talking for almost 2 hours. I can continue for another 12, but I don't think this would be a good idea. Standing time. Site management supervision, contractual cost if the bonds, advance payment, guarantee insurances, site establishment, finance cost, retention, deduction, bank interest rate, head office overhead, site overhead, plant and equipment, non-productive, and hire and rental equipment. These are the items that should be calculated as a prolongation cost for the period that is that the project suffered as a prolongation with no concurrency. If we moved forward, step forward, this is our case study. I'm going to, I think I've already opened, yeah, okay. So I'm just putting the Excel sheet here. We'll go through it one by one, but let's just read the case study. If you have received the slides before in PDF, you would notice a typo somewhere here. I corrected it here, but anyways, this is just perfectionism things. But anyways, let's just go one by one by the case study, and this is the last part of today's session. The project duration is 30. This is a real life project, by the way. I just changed some numbers so that I keep confidentiality. So we have the project duration of 36 months. It's the construction of a new international terminal in a major international airport. The employer late response and delivery of air zone confined. This is where the typo is. Confined area, zone F. Revising pre-approved equipment and adding a boarding gate had generated 11 delaying events, fragments. The contractor submitted the request for an extension of time and has granted 90 days. There was concurrency. But I presume that no concurrency assumed. Another information here, during the first 20 days, zone F was set on hold. During the 20 days, 1 excavator and 10 laborers were standing idle with no ability to demobilize or change deployment to another part of the project. So we have, in addition to the prolongation cost, we have 20 days, some activities or some equipments, some resources were set to idle status. So the contractor had not got the ability to demobilize them to other spots. In the request, it is requested to calculate the associated prolongation cost. What I'm going to present you in Excel format is what I was expecting, not what was submitted. What I was expecting as the owner representative to review, and the kind of substantiation I expected to see and review. And I showed you before that there is a reference by another one of the goals of the commercial calculations in the the reference, the institute I referred to in slide number 2, slide number 3. He did the same thing. Actually, I followed his step somehow, and I found out that with modification related to the case study, but what I'm presenting here is following this guy's step, but more to this, I'm presenting what I have expected in terms of calculation, substantiation, and even format of the calculation of the prolongation cost. So what can the contractor claim? First, the cost of 20 days standing time. Imagine with me, if this claim has prolongation of 90 days. If this claim has the prolongation of 90, if a concurrency of 90 days. So if there is a parallel or a concurrent delay from the contractor that caused another 90 days, additional 90 days parallel to the 90 days. So in terms of prolongation, the contractor will have zero entitlement. If we apply the principle, the general principle, the contractor will have zero entitlement to prolongation cost. However, he will still have the right to ask for the cost of the 20 days standing time. This is damages, not prolongation cost. Here, it got into the umbrella of prolongation cost because there was no concurrency. But anyways, the 20 days standing time is the right of contractors, regardless there is a concurrency or not. So if I put concurrency in the example, we will still calculate the 20 days standing time, because these, again, the case here, read the case again. During the first day, zone F was set on hold. During the 20 days, 1 excavator and 10 laborers were standing idle with no, just mark these words, with no ability to demobilization or change their deployment to another part of the world. So he will pay for them anyway. So he suffered damages. He can prove these damages. He will be, he has, I mean the contractor, he has the right to claim for these damages. Okay, so this is the case. Let's just go step by step. Okay, I'm going, I hope you are all, you can see all, you all can see the Excel sheet now. Just to confirm, can you see the Excel sheet? People are leaving. Can you see the Excel sheet?
Yes.
Just give me, oh, okay, okay.
Yes, if you can just zoom out, zoom in a little bit more. Thanks.
Okay, clear? Okay, the first part here is the standing time. The standing time is labor, we have 10 laborers. The excavator, we have 1 excavator, and of course the excavator driving. They stand it not for 90 days, by the way. They stand it, they set idle for 20 days. And the total quantity of days is the number of laborers multiplied by the number of days. So it's 200 in case of laborers, 20 for excavator, and 20 for excavator driver. The unit of measure is man hours. Leave this to the explanation later. The daily rate is 154, and you need to substantiate this 154. And this is total claim is the multiplication of the total quantity by the rate hours. I will come in the below table to how I calculated the 154.4, and this is required, by the way. You have to demonstrate how did you calculate the 154 and the 500 and 210. But I just for the sake of time, I will explain only one, and the same goes for excavator and excavator drivers. So it's a simple way, okay? It's the simple calculation. Labor, he stood for 20 days, not 90. Total quantity, this is this is calculated from down there, and the total claim is the multiplication of the total quantity by the daily rate. Okay, going down, the same for the excavator, the same for the excavator driver. For the labor, I have to come up or to explain to my, and by the way, not only this, I have to support this with my timesheets, with the approved timesheets. So if you are claiming that he worked for 20 days, and sorry, for 20 days, and you have 200 10 laborers worked for 20 days, you have to support this document with the timesheets. But I'm now demonstrating the calculation. I'm explaining the calculation, not the substantiation. So the 154, how did you calculate this one? I was expecting, as the one who's reviewing, to see the below table. One labor, this is the reference, I have the reference, and it's beneficial and will add great value to just have some kind of header here and some explanation here, so that anyone can, or anyone reads the table can understand. So the labor here has worked hours per day. He works 10 hours per day. The hourly rate is 15. The daily cost is 150. I'm paying traveling allowance for 1 day equals to 0.5 hours per day. So I'm paying 15 plus 0.5. I'm paying food allowance quarter hour per day. So I'm paying 3.7. This is the equation. This one multiplied by 0.25. I'm paying this 3.7 per day plus the 15 plus the 55, and the total is the 150 plus. And I'm paying insurance. Of course, every company has to pay insurance for, even if this labor is not part of the company, it has to pay some kind of insurance. If you are paying insurance and the premium is 12%, so I'm multiplying the total number. Normally, this is how the insurance calculate. I'm talking about the contract I saw. Maybe there are other contract or other insurance policies that are paying differently, but this is what I've seen in this project. So they used to pay 12% of the total, so they are paying 19, and the total is 180 per hour. But I didn't put 180 per hour. I have to calculate the 180 per hour. This is a working day. This guy is not, the prolongation costs are being calculated for calendar days. So at the end of the day, you are asking for 90 calendar days, and this is 180 working day. So I have to convert the 180.6 to calendar days. How is this? Is using the 7, which is 7, the number of column, 100, multiplied by 6 working days per week, multiplied by 52 weeks per year, divided by 365 days to calculate the 154, which is the value of calendar day for this guy that I'm going to be reimbursed. Okay, so this is just for the sake of professional integrity and scientific integrity. In some cases, we don't do this. I've seen some cases in calculation of prolongation cost, they don't do this one, and their defense or their explanation that I'm paying the 180 anyways. So I'm going to follow the 180. But the most appropriate way is to divide this into a calendar day, because to avoid being paid twice. Moving to the next step, this is the standing time. I didn't touch prolongation cost yet. Mr. Ihab, ask please, but quickly.
Some contracts we have rates for paying the additional cost, like.
That's great. That's great. This will save the entire coming effort. So you don't have to go through all these calculations and these efforts. Yes, it's more beneficial to have something like this, but I'm presuming here that we are doing something from scratch. So, and we don't have something in or rates in the contract. Normally, in some elaborated contract, yes, we do. We can have. We cannot. We just to save everyone's time, we have some certain table of. We call it schedule of values with the rates that should be used in calculating of standing time or prolongation. So I'm doing here the calculation presuming that there's nothing in the contract demonstrating the rates that you have to use to calculate the prolongation cost. But anyways, yes, if you have something like this, you are going to save much time, and I do recommend to have something in the first place in the preliminaries or in whatever contractual document you have. But now, again, I've not started yet the prolongation cost. The second step is related to the days, the prolongation cost. It's the site management, supervision, and site admin, and non-productive stuff. Non-productive stuff, that it's not an insult or not something bad. Non-productive means that they are working, but they are not generating concrete. They are not doing. They are managing the site. Okay. So supervising, driving, something like this. So we have here site management, supervision, site admin, non-productive stuff. So we have the project manager. Here I'm saying project manager, you can put his name. I have one. I have 90 days, not 20 days. Total quantity, so it will be the multiplication by this one. And the hourly rate is 70. If you are getting paid more than this, that's great. Rate per day, I marked it by blue because I have to substantiate it. And total claims is the multiplication of 90 days by the rate by day. The rate by day, I'm not going to repeat it for the entire 8. I'm going to do it for the project manager only. And I have to mention here that if you have resources that are working in part-time, so if I have the quantity surveyor and the HSE manager, they are supervising 2 sites. So they are working 50% in my site. So I have here 50%. So I'm not going to put 1 in the number. I'm going to put 0.5. The project manager calculation, that 580 per day comes like this. His name, his annual salary, his annual bonus, if any. He's one of my employees. So I am paying a premium insurance of 15% multiplied by 1 plus 2. And I'm paying pension 5% of 1 plus 2. Of 1, sorry, not the annual bonus, of 1. And the total is the summation. Forget about the multiplier, is nonsense. And this is the annual total equals to, I'm converting also to calendar days. This is the working days. I'm paying for his vacation and. So the calendar day will equal to 5 here divided by 365. So it's 508.9, and this is what I'm going to multiply the 90 days by. Okay, so site facilities. Some facilities are subject to depreciation. Some facilities are rental facilities. So I'm going to go through the depreciation description of contractor site offices, engineer site offices, storage areas. This is rent, and the first one is depreciation. Rent, site supplies, the site supplies that when the supervision consultant is stopping all the inspection to provide the color inks and the color pens and stuff like this. Sorry, if I'm just reminding you of something that you don't like. But anyways, IT services, computer, telephone, and internet, furniture and equipment, site fencing and security, photocopiers, the photocopiers, the machines, the copy machine, electricity for site. You are getting paid. Some of these are rent, some are monthly cost, some are depreciation. So if you go to depreciation, the contractor site office, I paid in the first place 40,000 whatever pound, dollars something, and it will be depreciated on 36 months. You remember? Yes, Inja Ahmed, تفضل. Inja Ahmed.
I'm sorry, but why 90 days?
Can you see the screen now? Can you see this where the marker, the pointer is?
Yes.
The prolongation, the contractor submitted the request for an extension of time and has granted 90 days and no concurrency assumed.
Thank you.
Most welcome. Okay. So 90 days, guys, 90 days is what the contractor has granted. And I'm presuming that there is no concurrency, so he'll be paid for the entire 90 days. So this is how many days the project has been extended or had been extended. So going back to the depreciation, I paid 40,000 whatever. I'm depreciating on 36 months. This is the project duration. The depreciation per month is 1,100 something. So this is the depreciation by month, multiplied by 12, divided by 360 to do it or convert it to calendar days. It comes to 36.5. Sometime you don't need to do this if the contract saying that we are paying by calendar days. But anyways, depreciation per month, and you are multiplying 3 here per month by 12 divided by 360. If you are not doing this, you will divide directly. You're not. If you just need to. I think in the depreciation you have to do this either way. You have to do this either way. The transportation here, cars engineer. I have 10, 90 days total quantity multiplication, and this is 6 rate per day is 6. It's paying him $6 per day or 6 whatever per days, and the multiplication is to calculate the total. The contractor cars, the labor bus, the fuel are under transportation. Non-productive equipment like the forklift, the T-delete, the site level, it's the same. 90 days. They stayed at site for 90 days, and the day rate, either rental or depreciation, you have to go for whatever record you have here. So you will be multiply the total quantity by the rate. This is important. Contractual cost. Normally the contractor, based on the contract, the contractor is providing performance bond, advance payment guarantee, car, the contractual or risk insurance, and these documents cost the contractor money every day. So I will have to extend the performance bond, the advance payment guarantee, and the car means contractor or risk insurance. I have to extend them by 90 days, and I need to go back to the price of this document or the price of the bank or whatever to get the rate per day and multiply it by the 90 days and get the total contractual cost. We call it contractual cost. If you have more, if you have more than these items in terms and under contractor cost or contractual cost, you have to list them, get the rates you got from the bank or from the insurance company, calculate the rate per day multiplied by the prolonged, because you have to extend them either way. If you're not going to extend them, this is another issue. This is important. Just focus with me for the remaining 45 respectable person, and of course every single person who attended this one has my full respect. But I'm just remarking your ability to endure someone with loud voice speaking for nearly 2 hours 15 minutes. Anyways, you have the finance cost. With every single interim payment certificate, we call it here progress payment. We call it sometimes progress invoice. With every single payment IPC you are issuing, you are being, or you fall as a contractor under retention deduction, right? So if you as of now issued 9 IPC, 9 interim payment certificates, each one of these 99 certificates you have got deducted by the retention amount. Okay, so as of now you have been deducted 108,000 for the prolonged term. Just focus on the concept, because this is just confusing a little bit. You are just, let's agree on the basic concept. With every IPC you are issuing, the employer is deducting the retention, 10%, 15%, whatever the context says. Okay, so you have been prolonged. Yeah, you have been prolonged by a certain time. If you put this deduction in bank, you will get interest. So this is a loss. You have to ask for whatever equivalent to this loss for the extended 90 days. So in terms of numbers, you have been deducted during the extension you have been deducted. You have been, I'm sorry. You have issued 9 IPC. The total deduction you or the employer withheld is 108,000, and the normal and the global bank interest rate per annum is 5.3%. Gentlemen, I'm taking the federal US official interest rate. Okay, so it's 5.3% in the US. I know that in other countries this varies. So the official bank interest per annum here is 5.3. So I'm calculating based on the 5.3. Okay, so the interest per annum, if I put this 108 that has been deducted from my IPCs in bank for 1 year, I will get 108 multiplied by 5.3. I will get 5,724. Day per years, of course, 365. Interest per day retention. So I will be having interest per day $15.68. And the interest period, per period, 90 days. So I could have saved I have a loss, or I lost $1,411, which is the multiplication of the interest rate per day, or the money I'm losing every day by keeping this money in the position of the contractor, multiplied by 90. So this is the total number that I'm going to claim under something called the finance cost. It's a bit controversial, and if it's a short time, this will tend to be $15 or $10 or something like this. So, but it should be explained like this. There is a retention kept by the employer, and if you use this retention in some other, even if you put it in the bank, you will be getting money. You will be getting money every day, and every day you are getting $15 or 15 pounds or 15 whatever. And in case of if in case of working in a company, just one second. If you are working in a country that is applying extra high interest rate, this amount can be higher than this negligible amount. Mr. There is a raising hand. Just go ahead, please. Go ahead, please. I see someone raising his hand. Please unmute and ask the question. عبد العليم. I'm sorry, but the name, الاسم مش باين قوي، معلش أنا آسف. Go ahead, please.
Not matter. Thank you. My question is, this interest is calculated as a simple interest rate. It's calculated, and I mean officially, it's calculated as simple or a compound interest rate.
Well, normally the amount here is negligible, so it will not make a huge difference in case of interest of 5.3. But if it goes to 30% interest rate or 25% interest rate or something like this, you will have to go to the complicated one. It will add more complication to this sheet. You have to see the period and calculate it year by year or something like this. But anyways, for 5.3% or even less in some countries, it's not. And with 90 days only, we tend to be. This is not 100% correct, but we tend to go for simple interest rate to avoid complication or avoid complicating things for extra $100 or $200, or even $1,000. Even $1,000. If you are claiming something like $500,000 or something like this, it will not harm you to get paid for $490,000.
Thank you.
Another question, and I will continue. I will just take one question from A. Unfortunately, I cannot see the. Is there another question, guys, or okay? There's no other question. Let's just move. The next one is also important because I think he's the same. Thank you, Mr. Abdullah. Site overheads. Well, the site overheads is a big portion of money. Site overhead is a big portion of money. So it's here 60 something. And this represents how much money the site, so I'm not site overheads. I'm sorry. Just I'm getting distracted a little bit. Head office overhead. I'm sorry. Head office overhead. So the head office overhead is the last one and the most. I'm not going to say complicated. It's simple, but I think it's a big portion. If you go to the summary here, you will find it the highest number we have in our summary calculation. So normally it represents the support you are getting from your head office. The support you are getting from the head office. All the references in the construction field admitted that it is bloody hard and difficult to isolate the hours of every individual working in the head office and get a clear and accurate and comprehensive list of those who work and the hour they assigned to your project. It can be done using the ERP, the modern ERP systems. However, it is really complicated. So 3 respectable experts, Ecolai, Hudson, and Emden, came up with a formula to calculate the portion of the overhead that you are going to claim for in your prolongation cost. So you have 90 days. We have still 90 days here. We are having 90 days here. Okay, but we need to calculate how much money we can assign to our project from the head office. So there are, again, 3 formulas, one called Ecolai, the other is Hudson, the other one is Emden. I'm going to use only one here, but you can go to the SCL. There is a very good calculator, and there I will just provide you the other equations, but I will use the one I prefer just to save time. I'm using Emden, okay? There is an equation to calculate the head office support. So the calculation contains or consists of 2 parts, the Formula 1 and Formula 2. Of course, it's one formula, but just to ease explanation, we have I, not Emden. I broke down the formula into 2 parts. Part 1 is dividing the annual head office overhead divided by the annual turnover. Turnover means the total work amount. The head office overhead or annual head office overhead profit. Profit is the profit, the net profit. In order to avoid misleading numbers, it is recommended by the one who developed the formula to use an average of the past years. And he didn't mention what is his preferred years. I used here 3. So the company, my company, the company requesting the extension of time and prolongation cost, had turnover in 2019 312 and 220. It's less because of the pandemic, and 221 they have $135 million. So we have the values. This is just coming from the books. You don't need to calculate this one. You just go to the books. I mean the financial records of the company. So you go to the books and get the turnover by whatever amount, but by whatever currency you are using for the past 3 years. You can do it for 5, 6, 7, 10. It's up to you. But I used here 3, and this is the average. This is the average. Okay. Summation, and this is the average. So this is summation, and this is the average. So the summation divided by 3. The same for the profit. So this year they got 312 million, and the net profit was over. The net profit was 37. This 60. It was 4.8. 13. As normally more or less 10%. More or less 10%. And this is the total of the profit for the past 3 years, and this is the average. The first part of the formula generates a form of percentage. The percentage Y is the division of the annual head office overhead, the small one, divided by the the average turnovers. It's up to you to choose the year, and it gets the Y percentage. It gets the Y percentage. The Y here is 11.11%. Okay, so the second part of the formula, it's a calculus formula. Calculus formula means that he didn't go through a scientific steps to get the formula. He just did a lot of trials and he came up with a correlation between the factors and he came up with a formula. So the second part of the formula is multiplying Y percentage by the contract sum, the contract you are working. The contract sum here is $6 million, multiplied by the day of delays, the 90, divided by the total contract duration in days. So the total contract duration is 3 years multiplied by 360. So it is 3 by 360. So it's 1,068 days. So once you put this in the formula, you will get the amount recoverable by dollars. Okay, so first one you get from your book. The second one, you have the contract sum, of course. You have the days of delays, of course. You have the contractual duration, of course. So you will do this as a simple formula and get the total number. The other formulas are not that far or that different from this formula. The other formulas, this is Emiden formula. I don't know whether I mentioned this somewhere here or not. Emiden's formula. I used Emiden formulas. I used my preference. I prefer this formula. But anyways, you can go for E. coli or Hudson. Or you can go to the SCL website. There is a very good calculation. You enter the same, you just enter the numbers, and it will get you the total amount recoverable for the head office overhead. Why have we done this? Because it's damn difficult to have every single person in the overhead in the site office working this one, especially with big companies. And I think in most of my previous experience, when we deal with big companies like big contractors in Egypt, I'm going to mention respectable contractors in Egypt like Hassan Allam or Orascom or whoever. Hassan Allam, Orascom. I mean, these are the key players now in Egypt. Wadi Nil, Al-Ghanim, Gama, Ruwad. These companies, I have the honor of coming across these companies before, and there was a real challenge to calculate accurately the contribution of the head office by resource to the project, especially when they have multiple projects. And with all due respect to all owners, I consider, or I have a very huge or very large conservatism on those owners who are requesting details of this one. Because if you are going to detail this one, you have to go through their books and review their books also. Anyways, it's a lot of factors, and Mr. Emiden, Mr. E. coli, and Mr. Hudson, some people are pronouncing E. coli, E. coli. But anyways, it's not an English session. So these guys spare us from diving into the books and diving into the overheads and diving into the resource and the ERP systems, and gave us a solution to calculate the overhead, the head office overhead contribution to the site. And then, of course, it's a simple summary. We will just collect the numbers from the previous sheet, and we will find out that the 90 days will entitle the contractor to this number of dollars, Egyptian pounds, sterling pounds, whatever. This is prolongation. If, again, I'm going to go back to the presentation. If there was a concurrency, the entire sheet will be summarized to only this sheet, because this will tend to the losses the contractor suffered anyways, regardless of having an extension of time or not. So if it's an extension of time with no concurrency, we will go through all the sheets. If it's an extension of time with concurrency, we will go for this sheet. If there is no extension of time and there is nothing requested, but I have set people ideal on site, you will go also for only this sheet. In the next session, for the sake of time, and I know that it's quite late, and I think I don't have a clear mind to continue answering question in a proper way that will benefit those who are going to ask. So I will postpone answering question to the week. Feel free to send me any questions you have in the group we are on. I think everyone is on the group now, or personally, if you have my personal contact. And I will just look at these questions. I will answer whatever I can answer. And if there are questions that are going to benefit everyone, I'm going to preserve the 20 minutes of the next session to answer these questions. Session 2, again, I'm going to go to session 2. Session 2, again, session 2, which will be next Saturday. We will go for the apportionment concept. You will have a lot of slides discussing apportionment, starting from here. This one is repeated, and then we will go along the way to explain apportionment, and then we will go for apportionment loss and expenses. This is included also, and I have intentionally added 5 examples. Maybe we will not be able to finish them all. However, I will finish whatever I can finish next one, and we might consider having an additional session. Yeah, let's leave it to next one. I have some. I prepared 5 tricky examples of extension of time. This will require that we might share with you in the group. And please, I have to thank the organizers first. Thank you very much for your effort. But I have an extra request. Would you please share the session of the methods or the classification of methods of delay analysis publicly in the group, please? It's a session, I think it's session 3, lecture 5, something like this. It's the session that demonstrate the types of or the method, the categorization of methods and the methods implemented for extension of time, just to have an overview of what we are going to have next one, because I'm going to presume that you have a view of whatever in this session, the types of methods and the methods implemented for delay analysis. So I'm planning to deliver 5 examples, 2 of which are simple and 3 of which are a bit complicated. If I didn't have time to explain the 5, I will just do whatever I can do, and then we can schedule another session. I'm planning to continue doing this project for some time. So it will not be only related to extension of time. I'm just planning to empty all the limited experience I have had during the past 22 years. So hopefully pray for me that I can cover this one. But anyways, I hope the session was beneficial to you. I talked for 2.5 hours. Or more, but I hope that I added to your knowledge and experiences. I hope that I've been a useful resource for the past 2.5 years, and thank you very much for your patience. Thank you very much for your endurance, and I hope again I have been a useful resource for during the past 2.5 hours. Thank you very much, and the material will be shared with you along with the recorded session via the group, and looking forward to meeting you inshallah in next session. Enjoy the weekend for those who are working in countries that gives Saturday and Sunday. مهندس مصطفى اتفضل لو عايز تقول حاجة بسرعة عشان أنا لازم أسيب الناس تنام.
معلش يا باشمهندس، في طريقة تانية لحساب الهيد اوفيس اوفر هيد؟
في 3 equations. You have 2 options, Engineer Mustafa. You have 2 options. Either to go for the equations, we have 3 equations. The one I presented, Emmeten, Hudson, and E. coli. Or you can go to your ERP system, and if you are using, I don't know whether you are using this in your company or not. If you are using the system of type card and an advanced system of time card and ERP assignment that enable you to see exactly who worked at this project for how many hours, you can present this as a reference to calculate your overhead, site overhead. But for 90 days or 30 days or 50 days or 100 days, there is a way that is acceptable by court and acceptable by everyone, acceptable by reference, which is using the equations. And again, I presented only one equation. We have two others, Hudson and E. coli, and they mostly the same. They are mostly the same. They are using the turnover and the overhead, but in a different way. Okay.
تمام شكرا باشمهندس.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening, good night, and have a great weekend ahead. Thank you very much. باي باي. مع السلامة. السلام عليكم.
شكرا يا
شكرا
حسام.
جزاك الله خير.
تفضل.
وعليكم السلام.